Right as I got my feet under me 2 years in and started being profitable, then COVID hit. Then we lost everything. We had hundreds of trips on the books for people, and we had to undo all of them, which
Wow.
meant that none of that revenue came in. And in
Oh,
fact, some of it that was canceled was already in that we had to go give back. Then we were spending all that time undoing everything, knowing that it was unpaid. And at that point, the goal was just don't go under. Don't go out of business. Do what you have to do. Take whatever losses. And as long as we can stay in business, we will be there when they're ready to travel again.
hello and welcome to My Great Pivot, the podcast where we talk to female founders in all stages of the entrepreneurial journey. I'm Carrie Regan, and I'm obsessed with stories of entrepreneurs who risk it all to pursue their dreams. This week, I'm welcoming Kacie Darden, owner and founder of Blue Pineapple Travel, a boutique agency that curates one-of-a-kind travel experiences for their clients. Kacie took a break from her own exotic travels to share her story, including how life-threatening complications during the birth of her twins forced her to give up the teaching job she loved and start over in a new career. You'll find out how she spun a lifelong passion for travel into her own agency, now with a staff of 17 travel advisors. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the ever-inspiring Kacie Darden. Kacie Darden, founder of Blue Pineapple Travel. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm just so excited to dive into your story. I've known you for years, but I've never heard the story about your transition from teacher to
Yeah.
travel agent boss.
hmm
So can you tell me first, when you were a young girl, what did you want to do when you grew up?
So this is like the running joke.
Okay.
When I was little, so there were a few phases, right? So when I was tiny, I would say that I was going to be a doctor. On the weekends, an astronaut, but in the evenings, a ballerina. And my mom was like, okay. And then it transitioned to we had traveled just a little bit. I have this vivid memory of seeing women with their little carry ons in a business suit walking fast. And I was like, Mom, I want to do that. I mean, you can see it, right? The like perfect suit and their perfect little carry on and going quickly through the airport. She had somewhere to go. She had purpose. She was successful. I don't know what she did, but I liked the vision of this girl. And I joke that I'm like, well, I do a lot of that now, but I'm definitely not wearing suits now that athleisure's in for travel. Once I got into high school and then into college, I became very driven by the sciences. I did my bachelor's and master's at the same time at the University of Georgia. So I graduated both on the same day. So as I was getting my master's in conservation ecology, my thesis work was all in southern India, and I was studying how the state of Kerala in southern India had lower birth rates, even though they weren't like doing any of the things that you hear that feel very authoritative. There were no birth policies. And so as I did research, really it came to educating women. Educating women increase the conservation of natural areas, educating women decrease birth rates, educating women. And so I found myself presenting and defending this master's thesis where the whole thesis was educate women. And so of course I was like, well, I have to go teach.
Uh-huh.
Like this is the answer to everything is educating women, giving women a path to success. This has to be what I do with my life. So I finished my bachelor's and master's in ecology, and I did not go for a PhD, which my professors were not happy with, but
Uh,
well, it didn't feel like the path. And I started calling around schools. There's Teach for America and those things. And I applied. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to call a school. So I called the middle school I went to and said, I have a master's in science, but would you hire me? I don't have a teaching degree. And they said, yeah. I was able to enroll in a teacher certification program while I started teaching. And this very much came from Kacie in India hearing educating girls. And so I thought, well, that's what I should do. So I went into the classroom and I loved it. I love teaching kids. I taught middle school and I love middle schoolers. They're crazy. They're just as likely to roll their eyes and hug you. They're these weird combination between children and adult. And I loved it. So I taught in a smaller, more rural school for a few years. And then I moved to Atlanta when I met my husband, George, and we got married. And I taught in more inner city schools. And then I ended up at a super progressive, very outdoorsy private school. I tried everything. So I taught for a decade. and I loved it. It was great, and that's when I was doing all my bike racing too.
Because you are this amazing athlete too, which is a whole nother part
A
of your
whole 'nother thing.
personality.
Yeah, so then I was very interested in, how far a person can go. What can you actually do with your body? So I feel like I also explored that with these ultra endurance sports and came around to with the right training and preparation, anything. You can do anything was really the answer I found,
Including setting the two-woman race across America record, which is no
including
small
that.
feat.
If you train right and you have the right support, you can do anything, which is a pretty empowering thing. So that's what I found from that in my life. So we had been married 7 years and decided, okay, we'll have children. And I said, well, I feel like I want one child because you just bring them wherever you want. Just one doesn't feel like that big of a deal. And so then, of course, the first ultrasound, we have identical twins. My husband was like, yes, I won. And I tell that because, and this is very much probably part of a lot of women's stories, like pregnancy and childbirth was not easy. I had a super traumatic birth. I ended up in the ICU. I was crash carted. I was nearly dead. The boys were healthy. They were preemies. And Quentin was 7'6" and Candler was 6'3". So they're like the biggest preemies on earth. They're like these little chubby premature babies. But honestly, I barely made it through. And I'm super, super, super lucky to get to be their mom. But I ended up in the ICU for a week. I mean, I got to go on one field trip to go see them because they don't let babies into the ICU. And I made it out. I'm okay, but I was not able to just bounce back and go back to work like I'd expected to. I was sick. Having come from a year and a half before setting a world record with my body, it definitely was hard. It was hard to go from that to not just motherhood, but then motherhood with 2, and then on top of it, I could barely walk, I could barely do anything. My mom and, of course, my husband was super involved, but he went back to work, so we got a lot of help from our family, and I remember the first time I stood up and I was at the sink, like, putting some dishes away, and my mom started crying because I it had been, like, a month since been able to just get up on my own and do anything,
Wow.
because I was so sick from giving birth to my super cool little kids.
You were still a teacher at this time then?
I was, but I wasn't well enough to go back to work when my sick leave and FMLA ran up. And so I had to call and say, I'm actually not well enough to work. I can't stand up for the day. I'm just now starting to go on very short walks again. I don't have the stamina for work because I was so sick. And so I left my job for 6 to 12 months. I was healing. Having 2 babies is wild. It's insane. It's whatever new motherhood is times 2. And so a lot of that first 6 to 12 months was me just recovering. And then because I am not someone who sits still well, by the time I felt better, I was ready to do something. I'd never planned on being home. I was home not because that's what I chose or wanted, but because I literally could not drive myself to work
Wow.
when I needed to go back to work. It was a big mental shift from someone who had just set a world record on a bike and had done double Ironmans. And it was a whole nother challenge in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I get about a year into the life I did not anticipate. I never anticipated being a stay at home mom. But to me, that first year was like stay at home heal, get myself to where I can be a little bit of myself again. And I thought, all right, well, like I need to go do something. I want work. I've always liked work. I like to do things, but I wasn't quite ready to be totally out of the home. And I thought it was a good option, a good time to maybe look at a different career. I love teaching. I had a great time doing it. I feel like I was pretty good at it. I loved the kids, had some really great experiences, but I was ready to think about something else. So I thought about, do I go back to school? It just felt like a clean slate kind of time, like a good time to do something else. And I always tried different things. I would consult here or there with an education group. I would find little things to do. And so I found some online tutoring. So I started tutoring online. Well, I can teach just online. It's easy. I did a little bit of that. And then I started also sitting back and thinking, what do I love? Well, I've always loved traveling and I've always traveled a lot. And I thought, what can I do? Literally just sitting here Googling, how do you work and travel? Like, how do you do this? Do I go become a pilot? Do I work at a call center for Delta? Do I go become a tour guide? How do you do this? And found that you could be a travel agent. So I found someone to take me on. I had never done any of it. Literally, my application was something like I've been to 6 continents and 50 countries, but I don't know anything about this job, but I'm smart. So I can probably figure it out. So I started working for a larger agency and just started building up a client base. And it didn't take long. It probably took under a year. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to own the agency and it's going to be mine.
Was that an Atlanta-based
No, it
agency
was just
or
kind of we call them host agencies where they have hundreds or thousands of agents. It's an easy way to get in if you don't know much about the industry. So I was just working as a contractor there, but I was pretty good at it and I liked it. And I was able to build up a client base pretty quickly to the point where, I was still doing some online tutoring and consulting here or there and finding things to do. I had, the very millennial 50 side gigs, not one job is where I found myself
Uh-huh.
with 2 small children all kind of at the same time. And I remember having this conversation with my husband of him saying, "I think it's time for you to pick somewhere and go all in. You're not a person who does things part way. It's never been who you are. So pick what you're enjoying, pick what you see your future in and go for it." So if it's the tutoring, go for it. Start your own tutoring business. Ask to be a manager there. Go for a promotion in that company. Or if it's travel, go do this business you've been talking about. So again, I literally this is the point. I probably should have gotten into an MBA program like you, but instead, this is not what I do. When I did my degrees, my bachelor's and my master's, I was 17 when I started at UGA, and I asked for an appointment with the head of the Department of Ecology. And I sat down and said, "I'm going to do my bachelor's and master's in 4 years, so we'll graduate the same day in 4 years from now. How can I do this?" And I look back, I'm like, who did I think what was I doing?
17?
To his credit, he got a kick out of it. Dr. Carroll was like, "Great, let's do this. I'm all, let's go."
That's fantastic.
He said, "You should go to the rainforest." So I did. I just flew and showed up in the research station and just hung out there and figured things out. So this is a pattern, right? This is clearly some of whatever personality trait is. I like that edge of being kind of scared to death and also being forced to figure things out. That is, I think, where I function well. So I had 2 people who I knew who said, "If you ever start this business, I want to work for you." And then I had a couple others kind of hanging on the side. When I started floating the idea with people, I was able to literally start with 5 employees to begin with. I was able to just go all in. I didn't have investors. I just did it myself.
That's because you had clients that you could take with you from your
Mhm.
previous.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're just a contractor, like they don't own your clients. You had to go find them and build that book of business. But I also had people that I had met in the industry just in the couple of years I've been doing it who said, "If you ever do this, I'd like to go with you." And then I did. So it's again a lot of starting from how do you start a business? You register in your state. What do I need? How do I get that certification to be legally a travel agency? How do I do all those things? And I just started doing it. How do you buy insurance? How do you do this stuff?
Did you have any mentors or resources, or was it all just the Google MBA?
Got a Google MBA, and I very quickly realized how much I needed some support and some mentors because lots of people will get into travel. So in my world, a lot of people are contractors or employees, which is how I started. A lot of people will buy out previous agencies. So a lot of other agency owners my age either bought it from someone else or bought it from their parents. There aren't a lot that just start from scratch. They might buy a franchise of another larger agency. And I literally just started with forming the LLC and opening a bank account, convinced it was going to work. And I didn't look for any investment. I just took some of my savings and said, "Let's do it." I did figure out quickly you do need mentors. You do need a network of people who are in the same position as you. So, literally within a year of opening the business, maybe 18 months in, I joined a group that there are 100 travel agency owners. We're kind of cohorted into similar sized agencies. We get together 3 times a year, sit in a conference room, sign NDAs, and say, how do we get better? And we literally look at each other's books, which is like, I think it's scarier than like taking your clothes off.
That's amazing. They could be the competition. Or is it
Yeah.
just that everyone has their own territory, and so you don't
It's
really think of them as the competition?
I think a lot of us in our industry see the internet as our competition, see people just doing things on their own as competition. People are traveling the world. Every time you go to the airport, you say there's plenty of business for all of us. There's enough clients for everybody. There's more than we could ever need. So I did find that network even though I didn't start with it. And then I have some informal ones too, some other agency owners that 2 or 3 times a year we'll get together, we'll have dinner, we'll compare notes, but there's nothing quite as serious as actually looking at the books. And it's fun because once you get used to that same group, you're able to say, "Wow, you had an amazing quarter. What did you do?" And they'll say, "Oh, I hosted 100 people to Dubai, and it was from this college. You should call your local college and you talk to your alumni association." So you get ideas from each other too.
That's wonderful, but that first experience of turning your books over and showing someone must have been terrifying.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
Horrifying. And then right as I got my feet under me 2 years in and started being profitable, then COVID hit. Then we lost everything. And at that point, the goal was just don't go under. Don't go out of business. Do what you have to do. Take whatever losses. Don't go under. Because we just knew once we got to the other side, our position in the marketplace would be more valuable than it ever was. And it is. I have kept hiring. I have 15 people on the team now. We have more clients than we've ever had. So we knew if we could survive that on the other side of COVID, we had earned our value.
You had such a brilliant strategy during COVID, and that you were still traveling and you were showing people how to do it
Yep.
safely. I think that was maybe the second time I used you. We were looking for a place to travel to that would be safe
Mhm.
in the Caribbean with my stepson.
Really the way that our business works, the under the hood of it is that for the most part we charge planning fees up front. So anywhere from 100 to a few $1,000s depending on is it just a quick little trip with one of my less experienced agents or is it we're taking 200 people, you want us there, kind of whatever level. So there's always some kind of upfront fee. And then from hotels and car companies and tours, they all will pay travel agencies commissions just like they'll pay online booking engines commissions too. So that's really where we get a revenue flow is from upfront fees and then commissions from suppliers. And so when COVID hit, we had hundreds of trips on the books for people and we had to undo all of them, which
Wow.
meant that none of that revenue came in. And in
Oh,
fact, some of it that was canceled was already in that we had to go give back. Not only that, but then we were spending all that time undoing everything, knowing that it was unpaid. And in some cases, money that I would have to take back from my employees that already given to them to give back to the
oh,
supplier that they could give back to the client. But our goal was always just take care of our people, keep our people safe. And as long as we can stay in business, we will be there when they're ready to travel again. And so, very early on, I mean, I first traveled June of 2020. And the goal was always if we can't figure out how to do it safely, then no one will trust us, no one will call us. So, the goal was always figure out kind of how to get somewhere safely. And you'd be surprised. Any customer service level business is about getting to know your customer and serving them where they are, right? Of course, there are going to be boundaries on what you are comfortable serving. There's every customer service business, there will be things that are a no. But for the most part, it's getting to know you and what it is that you want. And some people would come to us and say, we only want to go somewhere where we feel like everyone's been tested, everyone's been vaccinated, people will wear masks in closed spaces, everyone has to have insurance, whatever it is. And other people would say, I only want to go to places that are the opposite, where I don't have to do anything. And so it was our job to know and then every location would change, and someone might have booked a location based on whatever the policy was at that time. And we had to be ready to say, okay, the government policies changed. Is this still something you're comfortable with? So early on, we basically realized if we couldn't get out there traveling and doing it, that we couldn't advise our clients. And it was terrifying at first. It's hard to think about now because we just moved through the world so freely again. But it was scary at the time. I mean, the first time I went to Turks, I flew back and I was the only one in first class. I was like, thanks, Delta, for my private jet home.
wow.
It's very easy to social distance if you're the only one going to a destination.
Yeah.
So it was our job to get to know our clients and make sure that we met them where they were, what it is they want, what they feel good about. And I felt like that was the only way we could rebuild again. But by the time we got to July, my husband George looked at me and he was like, This is not the Kacie I'm used to. It was hard. Again, looking back now, we're successful, we're making money, our people are over the world, everybody's happy again, mostly. Things are good, but it was really hard. And so he said, You need to do something. I don't know what, but you need to just do something. And so we joked that I will always come up with ideas. I said, You know what? Aruba's opening their doors in a week. What if the fellas and I flew down and virtual schooled from there instead of here because it's kind of terrible here. My
Your
kids.
twins were how old at that time?
They just finished kindergarten.
Okay.
And my husband's a professor and he had to go back to school and they were going back in person. So I said, you can come visit us, but what if we just pack our laptops and we go? And he was like, great, go for it. So we went and spent the fall. I joke that it was their first grade study abroad program. Um, I went right up until I needed a visa to stay and then I left. And then we actually went back again for a few weeks because things were still terrible. I just wanted to be out of it. And we would just work in virtual school and then go to the beach in the afternoon. But the goal was how do we turn something that is so awful into something that feels like an opportunity? And I mean, in truth, unless we homeschooled, we'd never be able to do that again. And we don't homeschool. And I feel like it was a way to also lead by example, traveling with your children. The way that I tried to openly communicate, this is where my family is. This is what we're comfortable with. And of course, you're the whole time you're like, okay, well, don't get sick. That's the goal. Don't end up in the hospital. And day 3, Quentin fell off something. We had to go get stitches. I was like, here I am in the hospital, day 3 of being here. But then it's a small island. You have the main doctor's phone number. You can WhatsApp them whatever you need.
What a great
Um,
example for your clients because mishaps
yes,
happen when anyone travels, and to
absolutely.
have your clients see you weather that storm and
Yep.
emerge and everything's fine, what confidence they have getting travel advice from somebody who's been able to go through that and have everything turn out okay. I loved following your social media during that time. It was so
Oh, thank you.
aspirational, and I think, like, you do such a great job with social media in terms of promoting your business. Is that a
Oh,
conscious
thanks.
effort that you make?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I try and I am far from I always tell people, I'm like, we are not influencers in any way. We don't have tons and tons of followers, but it's our clients who follow us. So it's real people who buy travel from us. That's who follows us. So we try to be really open with how we communicate. And I definitely do plenty on my personal social media too to communicate about travel, about things that we like about it, the things that we experience. I try to keep it realistic and honest too. We take our kids all over. So
Yeah.
you'll occasionally see us in an amazing place with the kids. We went to go do a Northern Lights tour in Ireland, but I didn't think about jet lag. And so we showed up for the tour and they were asleep and there's clouds. And I was like, well, sometimes. So we're going to go have a cocktail.
How do most of your clients find you? And are a lot of them families who are inspired by the fact that you've been able to travel the world with your kids?
So I have 15 advisors on the team, and we have a variety of different ways that we market. I mean, of course, everybody has their own personal social media, their personal channels, their personal networks. We also really try to be as involved in our community and as people have gone back in person as much as we can. So one of my advisors, there's a small local bookstore. And so she started a travel book club there to try to engage with other local businesses in a way that feels really good for her. So she's built this little community of readers who like to read and talk about travel and then go travel. So we do have some kind of in-person marketing on Google ads. That'll never be us. That's not who we are. We spend time getting to know our people, taking care of them, and then when they call us when something goes wrong, we're there. So I think we're definitely referral heavy. You plan a few amazing vacations for people, and then they call us, and at at this point, you kinda know which little groups of people spread your name around, and we definitely have a lot of family travel, but then we'll have the grandparents call you, and they wanna go on their different kind of cruise or river cruise, and then you get the kids who are graduating from college and they want to go backpacking and we can at least give advice or that kind of thing. So, I mean, we really have it all, honestly,
And again, it looks like such an aspirational lifestyle. Anyone who looks at your social media feed just wants to quit their job immediately and go become a
and
travel
come work
agent.
for me.
But there have to be behind the curtain, there have to be some challenges. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have
I
about your
mean,
business?
I do feel like I'm really fortunate. I mean, I feel really lucky. I know it's no accident, right? I mean, I know I worked for it, but I also had that moment where everything was really bad. And I stepped back and thought, what do I actually want to do with my life? And decided I wanted a business that I would also enjoy, that would be a thing that I just love. And I've tried some other little things inside the business. Some of them work, some of them don't. I mean, I think anyone who owns a business knows how terrifying. It really is to support other people, that you have to make sure that you do things right. When something goes wrong, ultimately, it always comes to you. I always say that, no one calls me when everything's perfect. Now, there are things that we can control and things that we can't control. Some of that is hoping that you have clients that are reasonable and understanding and worldly enough to know that you are not the reason there's an outage. You are not the reason that someone got sick. That all we can do is advise people.
Because your business is so dependent on all of these providers, be it the hotels, be it the airlines really delivering too. It's
Yep.
not necessarily on
No, and
you.
we're not the pilots of those planes, and we are just guiding people through it. So, yeah, we had multiple clients in Vienna for Taylor Swift's concert that she canceled because of terrorism. Part of what we do is kind of set that expectation and then work through the issues. Sometimes you have someone book a boat, and I'm not kidding you, I've had a boat sink that they were going to go on the next week. So now they're not going on that catamaran because it doesn't work anymore. I
Oh,
mean, we've had kind of a little bit of everything. And part of what I do for both my clients and for my advisors that work for me is I joke that we plan travel, but we also do a lot of like low key therapy of what can we control here in this situation. Well, we can't control the outage, but can we make sure our clients have a safe place to sleep for tonight? That's what we can control. And when people do spend things out of control, which you've ever been to an airport and there's a delay, they do, you just remind them that they're safe. You're safe, you're with your family, everything's okay. Also, you're on vacation. So
yeah.
I say that we get to plan the icing on the cake of people's lives. We get to plan the thing they put on the calendar and look forward to. We're not the thing they have to do. And so what a gift that that's our business, helping people make that little star on the calendar, the countdown clock, making that something they look forward to. It's a pretty great business.
Yeah.
Uh, of course, you had to hear it came from some hard things, but I feel super fortunate with it.
Yeah, and George, your husband, as a partner too, has been so supportive. I remember
Yes.
asking you one time how he handles your travel, and your response was, "I'll never forget it. He knew what he was getting when he married me."
It's so true. And he had been super supportive. I mean, when I was racing, I feel like if we're anything, we're each other's biggest cheerleaders. He tells me when he has a big goal. I mean, he got his PhD while we were married, biggest cheerleader right here. He wants to do Ironman World Championships. I will cheer him all the way to Kona twice. He wanted to run this 54-mile race in South Africa to celebrate his 50th birthday. I'll support it. I'll plan it. I'm there on the sidelines and vice versa. I think when I have said, I want to start a business, he's like, great, go for it. When I've said, I want to do this experiment, I want to try something with my business, and then decided I didn't like it, I didn't want to do that thing anymore and back up from it, he's supportive of that too. The kids are filling out a culture, a family culture thing for school this week. And one of them was gender roles. And I said, well, what do you guys think? Do you think mama does things because she's a girl and daddy because he's a boy? And they're like, no, you both go to work. You both help at the house. No. I was like, yes.
Well done. Tick that
Yes.
box. Success.
Yeah. And I mean, there's ebb and flow, right? I mean, there's sometimes like when I was sick because I had the children, I was not earning the money, I was just healing.
Yeah.
And then there have been times when George has had issues and I've stepped up. I mean, so I think partnership is right. I mean, we're married, but we're very much, there's a partnership there.
It's wonderful to see.
Mhm.
Looking back, can you identify any mistakes or any periods of regrets in building your
Mm.
business, things that you would have done differently that might be good lessons for others?
I mean, I think I'm very comfortable outsourcing things I don't understand or know. I probably would have switched a bookkeeper earlier on from just like a friend who did it to a professional. Once I basically got into the COVID era and realized that we were hanging on by a thread and that thread mattered and it mattered to people's livelihoods, then I decided to actually spend more and professionalize a lot of the back office of what we were doing. So I think even having that figured out from the beginning, and there's certainly some things I could rewind and say I should have done before, but that's also not how I necessarily work. I think at this point, I've acquired 2 smaller agencies, and
Uh-huh.
I'm very open to and excited about acquisitions as a way of growth. And they're small little one-person agencies or two-people agencies where they're gonna retire or they built another business they're gonna go after. And so I'd love to look back 20 years from now and wonder what I should have known now that I feel like that's kind of the phase I'm pushing into right now. But I do think people are different, but I definitely am not the overthinker who won't act. I think that acting is great. I would love to even learn more about my industry. So I do try. I try to serve, I join committees, I go to conferences. I tell my advisors who are just starting and they're like, "Oh, I'm just learning so much. When am I ever gonna be done?" And I'm like, You'll never be done because our job is literally the entire world." I feel like being voracious about continuing to learn is super important. I remember there was a moment in COVID, probably in like May of 2020, when I told my husband, I said, "Well, if I knew how to quit owning a business, I would quit. But I don't actually know how to quit."
Oh,
How do you do it? I don't know. I don't see a path to quitting, which is probably a good thing. Now I know, right? Now I know that if you have a profitable business, you sell it. That's how you quit. But at the time, no one was profitable. We were all just surviving. So I think remembering in the beginning that you just got to make it all work and finding the weaknesses that you have and getting someone really professional to help you is worth whatever investment that amount is. So and then being willing to always keep growing. I feel like that's the only time I end up feeling stuck. I also know I've got to be careful of shiny object syndrome. I get excited about things and want to go after them. So I would say the past couple of years, it's been learning how to find those things inside the boundaries of my business as a way to make the business grow rather than kind of distract me away. So, what's an opportunity versus a distraction? And I've chased a couple of shiny objects and then looked up and thought, oh, that wasn't it. Which is why I think acquiring and growing the size of the business itself is the more exciting option. And then I also, for a couple of years, decided because I was doing a few other projects that I would just fully step away from actually selling travel, taking on clients. So I didn't take on any clients because I thought when you're an owner, you can't also be like making dinner reservations and processing payments and doing that kind of thing. And then I met a few other owners with agencies much larger than mine because I saw their books. So I knew that I knew where they were. And they were like, "Oh, no, Casey, I've got clients I would never give up. I love talking to them. Maybe they're not the most profitable, but they're my favorite people." And so in the past year, I actually said, I miss that. And I feel like that was the joy. And that's what brought me here is planning people's trips and then saying, "How did it go? Tell me, was that hotel room upgrade worth it or was it worth it?" Kind of
uh-huh.
hearing that from people lights me up some. And so I step back into some of the sales role because I actually love sales. I love talking about a place and how wonderful it is and then planning it. So learning how to then not grow to a point that then you aren't actually doing the business you love anymore, but
Right,
finding a role for myself. It's maybe not as big as it was on the sales team. I'm not our biggest salesperson, but I have enough of it that it still gets me excited and also keeps me in touch.
right,
So I don't know that I have regrets as much as making sure that every time I make a mistake, I learn from it.
right.
Um, and I'm voraciously willing to keep learning.
The industry is constantly evolving
Yes.
too, and how consumers are engaging and booking
Yes.
travel too. But what an asset you are to their experience about everything that you offer up that Google Flights can't offer or
Right.
Expedia or whatnot. Do you feel like your 10 years as a teacher benefits you in your current role and in your
Oh,
business? What role does that
100%.
play? Yeah.
And I think my degrees in science benefit me. I I took my whole agency to Costa Rica last year, and we were on a tour in the rainforest, and I kept answering the questions that the tour guide said, and my advisors was like, "Casey, we get it. Your degree's earning college fee." And I was like, "This is when I'm using it." But in reality, it's also that I enjoy communicating and making sure they knew that I knew all the trivia of the rainforest. But I think that anyone in a sales or management position knows that communication is everything. The way that you communicate is whether or not you make sales or not. The way that you communicate with your employees or contractors or anyone you're working with. I mean, that's the difference in success and failure in my mind. Do you know that my entire team is all women also?
Ah,
Um,
fabulous.
yeah, so we're female owned, operated, everything. And I think it's easy to talk with a group of women about communication, which is something you learn in a classroom, right? Because you have 25 kids who are all totally different and learn different ways. And then they have parents who communicate different ways and learning how do you talk to them that's effective? How do you reach someone where they are, whether they care about your subject at all, or they're obsessed with it and it's all they want to talk about, or they're disengaged and you need to connect with them and figure out why. So I think spending 10 years learning to communicate, and you have to be a little bit scrappy as a teacher too, and figure things out and problem solve. And, my husband's still an education professor, so I have huge respect for the whole world of teachers. So I think honing those communication skills and getting to know people as individuals is really kind of the base then of what I think our business model is. You kind of just build, right? Like
Yeah.
I joked when I did Race Across America where I didn't sleep, and then I had twins where I didn't sleep for like a year. I got to where I'd get a 90-minute REM cycle of sleep between feedings of the twins. And I said to George, I've done this before. I'm just getting up with babies instead of hopping on a bike. I know how to survive on one REM cycle of sleep. I've done this. It's not like a clear path, but you always get better and improve and learn something. And sometimes you wiggle off the path a little and then end up back on.
Yeah. It's funny during this stage in my life, I feel like there are so many different ideas I have and paths that I could pursue, but at the same time,
Yes.
I might only have
Right.
one more professional chapter. And I
Yep.
feel like I can relate to these college students and as I felt when I was graduating where whatever path you pick, it's so scary. That's the path and
Yeah.
it could lead you to failure and you could waste some of these last few
Mhm.
treasured years, or it could be something that leads you to something wonderful. How did you know that travel was it? Because you were trying a few different things. How did you
Mhm.
know that that was what you were going to commit to?
I think I did.
Yeah.
I mean, until I got down far enough the path when I said I had that conversation with my husband about, okay, let's fully commit to something and go all in on it again, because half doing different gigs can wear on you, and you can't be as successful as you would fully. No, I don't think I did necessarily just wake up and say, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it forever. But it's hard to imagine not doing it now. I mean, I love it. I love the industry. I like where the industry's going. I like being a part of it. And my industry is not an industry that retires early. Why would you?
Right.
Because the really amazing sides really are that amazing. So I could have a place in this industry for a long time still. And I think that's exciting. But I also think you just go for it. But you can also decide, nope, that wasn't it, and try again. There are no rules here of what you have to do or the path you have to take.
Yeah.
You try things out.
Yeah, and always double back. And so for women who are in this position where they're considering a pivot, they're in a job,
Yep.
maybe they like it, but they want to try something new, maybe they absolutely hate it, and they've been nursing this idea for their own business.
Mhm.
What advice would you give them?
Oh, definitely go for it. And, maybe do some research or not. um, But it's a business, it's the foundation, it's like the heart of the business, whatever it is. For me, it's planning travel. For someone else, it's, making cupcakes or running someone's accounting. You just love spreadsheets. I don't understand that, but you just love it. I think if you love the heart of the business, you'll be great. And then, like I said, you kind of get to where you have a growth point where then you realize you're not doing that thing you love. Make sure you stay connected, whether it's popping in for a day or two. If you grow past being a part of the day in and day in operation that brought you there, it's not for everybody, because you do have that wake up in the middle and oh my gosh, I'm responsible for so many people. But at the same time, it's so empowering. I sometimes step back and think, like I said, the level of gratitude of that I get to do a job that just makes people happy, which is so much fun. I mean, we talk about something they want to do for years and plan it, and then they go do it. It's great. So having something that lights you up, when we talk about in our house, like travel opportunities, because I get a lot of opportunities, and we talk about the threefold: is there ROI? Am I going to make money from it? Because it is a business. Even if it's super fun, it's still a business. Does it fit into my family schedule? And does it light me up? That's how we decide on opportunities for my business. And any of those can block it, right? Like it could be an opportunity that I'm probably not going to make much from, but I'm so excited and I'm like glowing. George is like, oh, you're going to go. Just go.
Right. And you never know, maybe that could turn into an opportunity that you just
Yeah.
don't see right now.
But I definitely think if someone needs to find a mentor, do it. But I do think that sometimes we as women can overthink. I
Yeah.
joke in my agency that I have a group of overthinkers anonymous, and they'll call and say, all right, I'm stuck. I'm just overthinking anonymous here. I'm spinning my wheels to make a decision. And so I think making a leap, making a decision, just kind of going for it isn't always what we are taught to do as women. And then as your life becomes even more complicated, you have partners, you have children, there's more at stake, being willing to still risk because it makes you excited. I definitely think people should do that. And if that's not it, then finding maybe a job with people that make you happy, because I think that matters too. I think sometimes if you're thinking about it, if you're unhappy or if you find yourself at a moment, even if it comes from something bad, whether it's being laid off or a health issue, or you had to go caretake for your parents, or I mean, people find themselves in these kind of career pauses. What an exciting generation that we get to then do that. We get to look around and say, what do I want to do with my life?
You mentioned a little bit about growth in terms of acquiring other agencies. What's
Yes.
next for Blue Pineapple Travel?
As far as bringing on people, I like it to be kind of organic. I like people to be the right fit for us. So I'm always open to hiring when the people are right. I'm always open to clients when they make sense for us. I love the idea of acquiring more agencies. So I kind of have my name out there in a few different places. But again, it needs to be the right fit. They need to be the clients that will fit with us. An agency that's all online with a call center is not us. So looking for clients that are used to our kind of thing. So as some of our industry kind of ages out or retires, that's exciting opportunity for me, I think. And then I've also enjoyed moving into some kind of thought leadership about the industry. So I've got some speaking opportunities in the next few months. I'm looking forward to talking about how to bring in clients from our generation, Gen X millennial generation that might not have used advisors before and now have the time and resources to travel, but might not communicate in the same way that baby boomers do. So I think it's exciting being a part of the industry. In the rest of my life, I don't feel super young, but in my industry, I do. So I feel like I have a lot of years to still figure out what I'm doing and then really great travel ahead.
I hear the intentional use of advisors over agent. Is that
Yep.
something that is very
Yeah.
intentional?
It's been a move in our industry. Particularly, I think that a lot of people think of travel agent as you pick up the phone and they like handwrite you a plane ticket, or you walk in and they have a lot of brochures, and that's not really us. We very much consider ourselves advisors. We will help you figure out here's your world. Where do we want to go? What makes sense for you? What fits your budget? What makes you happy? Then let me give you advice. Actually, you think you want this, you might actually want this other thing, or let me advise you on your options. So rather than being order takers, I think we're more collaborative. At least that's always our goal.
I love that. And then when you're talking about these acquisition targets, how do you
Yes.
evaluate them? How do you know that they're going to be a good fit? And then how do you evaluate how much you're paying for them? Is there a formula in the industry?
Yes. So the two that I've taken on again have been just they were one woman agencies. So one was in Atlanta and it was almost all Black women group travel, which has been so much fun. And that was, I guess, almost 4.5 years ago. So we talked a lot about making sure kind of that I was culturally respectful and understanding the way that her clients would travel that might be different than the way that other clients travel. They're almost all earnouts right now. So there's not a lot of cash upfront purchases right now. So that earnout's totally done. And then I have a second one that was California based and she had a whole lot of family travel. And so we're still in the earnout for that right now.
Can you
And
explain
it's
what
a
an earnout is for people who might not know that?
Yes. So if you're going to buy a business that you just write a check for, here's a check. Now I own everything. If you have hard assets, I've bought those. If you're just people and client lists, I've bought access to all of that. You can't touch those clients again. And maybe the owner works for you for a while as well. With an earnout, what we've done is that the owners have introduced us to all of their clients. And then we have access to their client list for marketing. Whenever leads come into their website or their phone rings, they make an introduction to us because they're no longer serving the clients. Ultimately, then it's the client's choice to book with us or not. And then we would owe a portion of the fees and commission back to the original agency. So it's a way to build your client base. And the earnout can have a time period, it can have a percentage that goes down over time. It can have a cap that you have to pay them commissions until you hit this amount and then you're done. So I've done it both time frame and amount. It's got to be the right fit for their clients, that we know the kinds of products and the kinds of travel that their clients do if they're very niche. I mean, there are super niche travel agents and they know everything about whatever it is there, that only do yacht charters, that only do certain products. If I don't have anyone on my team who does that niche, it's not a good acquisition for me, unless I'm also bringing the person who has that base of knowledge that they've spent years figuring out. And then I don't think I would do many upfront purchases. I don't need an office space. I don't need a whole lot of hard assets. I don't need your computer system. We all have our own. So are they open to the kind of earnout that I'm willing to do? And does the knowledge transfer? If it's super corporate, we have a couple of companies that we serve, but not a lot. We're not a super corporate agency. It's a different kind of travel agency. If it's a corporation, but we've got like one little PR firm and there are only 3 employees and they're all women and they like it to be very high touch and they like nice places rather than just a Holiday Inn Express. They fit us, but not like a big company that needs a call center. So does that acquisition fit with us?
Love that. Okay,
Mhm.
most difficult question of all.
Yes,
Most difficult question.
I'm ready.
Your favorite location, your favorite hotel. You can say for a solo travel,
Oh, good.
family
Solo
travel,
travel
couple
with the
travel.
so lots of favorites. And I say there's like the exotic ones you want to say just so, I love telling people I went to Antarctica with Coke 20 years ago before it was cool to go to Antarctica, before there were like fancy cruise ships. I feel like I'm in my desert era right now. I went to the Atacama Desert and just loved it in Chile this year. I thought it was amazing. I love Iceland for families. I think it's really special. It's beautiful and easy, and there's not any crime. Kids just frolic because everyone's related to everyone because it's so small. I think Iceland's a great family destination, especially if you're adventurous. And then gorilla trekking in Uganda is one of my all-time favorite things. I can't wait for my boys to be big enough to, you have to be 16 to go, but we will definitely gorilla trek together. I do tend to like harder to get to places. My Caribbean time during COVID was great, but I definitely seek out places that are a little bit harder. And, being based in Atlanta, a lot of our clients will say, well, I want a nonstop Delta flight. And I'm like, you have to remember that all the good places are hard to get to. If there's an easy nonstop flight, it's not as remote as you believe it's ever going to be. So I enjoy Europe, but Western Europe's easy. It's maybe not always my very top. I haven't been back to Asia in a little while, so I'm going to Borneo in October, and I can't wait.
So
That's
jealous.
one of those lights me up things.
Well, your story is so inspiring, overcoming adversity during COVID, post the birth of your boys as well, and
Yes.
thriving, having an agency now with 17 employees and serving a population that I'm sure just so appreciates everything that you have to offer. I appreciate you sharing your story. How can
Oh,
people find
thank
you?
you. You can always find us at Blue Pineapple Travel on all the social media, bluepineappletravel.com. And then you can always email me, Kacie, Kacie, at bluepineappletravel.com.
Thanks again to Kacie Darden for sharing her story of grit and determination. From building her own business following a health crisis to coming back after COVID. In the process, she's crafted a customer-centric agency that stands out in an industry awash in digital tools. If Kacie's story has you dreaming of your own getaway, I highly recommend the Blue Pineapple team. You can find them at bluepineappletravel.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to share your own entrepreneurial journey, we'd love to hear from you at thefemalefoundersproject.com. Thanks for listening and keep innovating.